Okay. Who was going to start with the discussion of the story?
But can I say like a brief summary that I wrote?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So the story is mainly about a boy named Frank who has typhoid, and there's Patricia who met him at the fever hospital. But Patricia has this disease that is called diph- diph- diphtheria, which can cause her death. They talk all the time, and she introduces him to poetry and Shakespeare. They also make a friendship between the two of them and a boy named Samus, who cleans the hospital. The nurses at the hospital don't like their patients to talk, and Frank later gets moved to the upstairs ward of the hospital because he and Patricia kept talking. Um, he's also alone since he doesn't have anyone to talk to, only Samus. Um, and he only visits him. Samus only visits Frank like 3 times a week. Frank also is soon informed later on the story that Patricia died while trying to walk to the bathroom and falling on the floor. Frank is sad that she died, but what bothers him more is that he didn't get to hear the end of one of the poems that she read to him. Since Patricia liked to read poetry to him, and like he introduced him Shakespeare's and everything. At the end of the story, Samus told the ending of the poem for since Patricia died and promised him to bring him more poems to read for him.
Okay, very good, Emily. Who'd like to discuss about the characters and the way they act throughout the No todos, ¿verdad? O sea, solo uno de ustedes que me diga qué onda con Patricia.
Patricia seems to be a very joyful girl, even though she's about to die. But Frankie seems to be a boy who's always scared because he knows the gravity of his situation. So I think Patricia is joyful and Frankie is always scared.
Dulce, sí. What is... Sorry. Hold on. No. What is the author's tone toward the nurse? What is the author's tone toward the nurse?
I mean, he couldn't talk. He couldn't say anything because the nurses were like a higher power in the hospital. So he couldn't say anything. He just had to follow orders.
Why does Franklin has to leave the room?
Because Patricia and him used to talk a lot, and the nurses didn't like that.
Okay. What does Sister Rita's attitude toward the poem about the highwayman reveal about her character?
It seemed to me that Sister Edie was a very religious person and she didn't believe in anything else if it wasn't related to her religion.
Religion and prayers. She was very square-minded. Square-minded. Very good.
Fíjense que yo no tengo canela. Yo tampoco. Canela. Canela.
Okay, a connotation is is the feeling or association attached to a word. What are the connotations of the word feasted and guzzled? How does the use of this word help you understand the nurse's attitude toward the English? No? Based on the tone of this paragraph, what do you think is the author's opinion about how children are treated by nurses and nuns? And I would like to hear more than one opinion in here.
The author gives them the nurses like a hard attitude. So maybe he thinks that nurses in real hospitals are really like they treat bad kids, or they are not.
Anybody else, please?
And they think that just because Frank was young, that he doesn't understand anything. Like he knows everything. He knows that Patricia is going to die. Like the nuns act like they don't know anything. That they can show emotions because they are young.
Okay. This story takes place in a hospital, in a typhoid hospital, that apparently was ruled by the Catholic Church. Okay? Around the world, we know that Catholic Church has dispensarios, daycares for children. They have community lunch for the poor people in certain areas that show extreme need. In the past, there were thousands of places like this hospital, okay, where poor people could go, and the nurses were nuns or monjas that used to take care of them, and it was okay because there was nobody looking at them. There was nobody concerning about the work they were doing. But nowadays, that we know that there are some internships or places where they take care of kids, and they are not only abused sexually, but mentally and physically. Because it's not the same to abuse physically from a kid than to abuse sexually from a kid, okay? When we say physically, we refer to the way they hit them or the way they punish them. Now, I'd like to listen to your opinions about how is it different back then from now.
How not? It was very different. Well, there weren't human rights to begin with, at least not in paper. And the Catholic Church had almost complete power over certain installation and government status of some countries. Also, it's obvious, but there wasn't good medicine, so people die more often, younger, from things like flu.
Very good. It's true. And how is the feeling that Simons feels about Patricia's death? How would you feel in his position? If you were Simons, how would you feel if Patricia died? That is the question about.
Of course, she will be like depressed because he was her friend, his friend.
Means,
Okay.
as Samus also gave him the news to Frank about Patricia's death, it would be very hard, and like he would have to prepare himself to tell him something that is obviously gonna cause him something like really, it's gonna be like really sad. So he has to be like very careful with his words as well.
Very good. Why do you think Frankie wants to know what happened in the poem about the highwayman? Oh, one of my favorite ones.
I think that he might be like curious because if Patricia didn't tell him the end, he would like to know what's the end of that poem, and he would like to know how
Okay.
how's the highwayman.
Writing. Do you remember that poem, guys? We read it together. We read it together in ninth grade. No? Ashley? Do you remember about the highwayman?
Yeah, the first thing when that word came into the story, it remembered me that we had read it. I don't really remember the story, but I remember that we read it.
Oh, you're so sweet. Oh. Is that since it's a poem of love, Gabi doesn't remember about it? Complete it. Open it. Guys, I want to introduce you to one of my new acquisitions. His name is Jefferson. Jefferson is a very special boy. He's having problems socializing with kids. And yesterday, he almost killed one of the little babies. He was playing, but playing to kill, like the games he plays on the TV and the video games and the programs he watches. He was grabbing the kid by the throat and very, very hard. So I was really confused because I've never seen a kid act like that. But he said he was playing. So now we have to teach him how to play fair and play nicely with kids. Guys, for God's sake, when you have your kids avoid video games, tablets, phones, and
Yes.
computers. Dígame, amor.
Pero la verdad que eso depende de cada quien, porque no hay que dar condiciones en realidad. Porque cuando no está jugando, no entiende que está jugando videojuego. Aunque el niño es pequeño, tipo, no es una excusa decir.
No, por lo mismo, se debe de evitar que los niños sean expuestos tan pequeños a ese tipo de violencia, porque vos ahora lo entendés, pero un niño de 5 años no sabe qué es realidad y qué es ficción. Si yo todavía creo en Santa Claus.
Por ejemplo, mi hermana tiene 3 y ella no ha visto jugar. Yo nunca he visto a ella con ganas de agarrar una pistola y dispararle a alguien.
Porque no ha estado con más niños, Diego. El aspecto cambia cuando ya la niña se relaciona con más pequeños. Probablemente ella va a tener una madurez más grande. Hey, ¿qué te pasa? Tráeme esa tijera. Cortate la lengua para la próxima, mejor. Tráeme esa tijera. Anda, sentate. Okay, what is the technique that Frankie's used to deal with his fear of darkness? No? Okay, let me just check who's... Okay, Omar, Alberto, se fueron, Isaac Córdoba, José Córdoba. Ok, ahora la última pregunta. La última. What can we compare now the typhoid fever to nowadays? Typhoid fever was long time ago. Time ago. No, long time ago. No long time ago. Tamagotchi. No. Nowadays, what can we compare it to? No me van a decir que con el COVID, por favor. Not to the coronavirus, but to
maybe cancer.
Else. Maybe cancer, okay.
Because the story is like a whole depressed theme, and they like the author gives like to understand that all kids are going to die about it.
Okay. Very good, Diego. 2 extra points for your clever answer. Ni los ocupes. Okay, people, tomorrow get ready for sharing your experiences when traveling by plane. If you haven't traveled by plane like Miss Angela, invent one trip. In the one, la llanta se punchó in the middle of the trip, and you fell into a bache and all of that, okay? Tomorrow, be ready to speak. Esos mudos, ya saben, ¿va? Tienen 0 también y no participan. We'll see each other tomorrow, guys. Have a wonderful day. I love you.